Hello, welcome to Taxpayer Alert. I'm Al Segala, I'll be your moderator. I'm also president of the Calaveras County Taxpayer Association, and you can join us for only $12 a year. This is another one of our exciting programs. We bring you the smartest, most knowledgeable people in the county, and sometimes you find out things here that you can't find out anywhere else. This show is no exception. Our guest is Michelle Patterson. She's the Office of Emergency Services Director, and she keeps track of all these different things that are going on with the problems in our county with the disasters. Michelle, welcome.
Thanks, Al. Thanks for having me.
All right, Michelle, we don't know exactly how you got involved in all this, but you're having fun. So do you have... what is your background in this sort of thing?
Sure. So I actually was born and raised in the Bay Area and went to school in Los Angeles and came up to El Dorado County, which really launched my career in emergency management, and then, of course, came to Calaveras. But I've been interested in emergency management for the better part of 15 years. I think it started with a real interest in earthquakes and sort of the management around the 1989 earthquake, and kind of just launched from there. It's always been very interesting to me. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I remember the problems we had before you came on board, and there was discussion that we're not keeping track of the money, we're not coordinating, we're not getting reimbursement because we don't have the right record keeping, and I think the one supervisor, Dennis Mills, was really advocating getting one person in charge, and our county auditor was pretty much saying the same thing. You're not keeping track of your money right, and then you came aboard, and then all the problems disappeared.
They all did. No more problems for Calaveras.
Well, maybe.
Maybe. Hopefully not. Fingers crossed. When Calaveras is handling quite a number of disaster declarations, and there's a lot of coordination that needs to occur with federal and state agencies actually getting the projects done. There's a lot of documentation that may not be regular day-to-day mode of operation for a lot of programs. We require lots and lots of documentation. If you didn't document it, it never happened, and we're not going to get reimbursed for it. So there's a lot of coordination, a lot of oversight, a lot of moving parts, and we're dealing with 4 disaster declarations in the county. So that's a handful.
I think the Supreme Court many years ago said that which the federal government subsidizes, it should control. Well, the federal government can't control something if it doesn't know anything about it.
Right, right. Well, and all emergencies happen at the local level.
Right.
So they start locally. Every fire that we've had starts in a position locally. It may escalate, of course, and fires don't know boundaries and they don't know political lines, but all disasters start and end locally. And so we really have to be able to control those or facilitate those really at the local level.
Okay, our first category of discussion is the role of the OES. And what is the role of the OES?
I get that question a lot. I tell people that I work in emergency management, and they don't immediately know what that means. But really, OES provides a lot of the support and coordination for field response in particularly a big incident, but also small incidents. There's a lot of training that occurs, a lot of planning, emergency planning, a lot of coordination with partners. We have basically everyone in the county, at every agency, every organization has some role in emergency management, whether they know it or not. And so really it's bringing that coordination together between utilities and public service agencies, health and human services, public health, bringing all of that together and helping to coordinate all of the different efforts, because there's law and fire in the field doing the good work that they do, but then there's a lot of other things that are going on in the background to help coordinate. So we're doing a lot of planning, a lot of training, a lot of just that coordination and making sure that executive leadership at the county level is informed about what's happening, and particularly the board in the event that there's policy decisions that need to be made or financial decisions that need to be made as it pertains to that response. So
So it's kind of like getting organized before a disaster.
Right.
So when the disaster hits, you can handle it efficiently.
Right, and be organized afterwards so that we do get our reambrsement and
And
have all of our documentation.
And get paid.
Right, exactly.
Well, that's pretty good. Now, let's suppose we don't have any disasters for 2 or 3 years. Besides being boring, there probably needs to be a plan for that too.
There is a plan for that too, right? So, we go through seasons in California, although not like the East Coast where we've got really structured seasons, but we have heat that happens in the summer, we have cold that happens in the winter. Last winter, the 2017 winter storms brought about its own couple disaster declarations actually, and so we're always planning for the next season. I just recently drafted our extreme cold plan for the county, so that's in the review process right now. In the event we have a significant cold event that comes through, so we're always planning for the different hazards that may occur here. So we've got fires, we've got floods, we've got utility failure, heat events, cold events. We're experiencing a lot of smoke from surrounding area fires, and so kind of figuring out, working with air quality and public health, and how do we manage that, and the messaging, and what do we need to do. And so there's a lot of planning that's going on when we're not doing response.
The other counties around us, do they have coordinators too, or how do they do their stuff? Right.
So every county has it structured a little bit differently. OES is in different departments depending on the county or the jurisdiction. It's organized differently. It was previously here organized with the sheriff's office, and then it was reorganized into administration. So it sits different places, but all counties are required to have an OES function.
Right.
So it just depends on the county and their structure and the amount of resources they have, where that sits.
I was thinking that if we don't have any disasters and your function then is primary training, maybe we can rent you out to other counties and that don't have organization as well as we do. And then that would help the other counties and then be good on our budget as well.
There you go. Well, so California actually has a very robust mutual aid system, and so when there are disasters in other counties, we're able to utilize that mutual aid system to get resources in where resources either might be lacking or they're just exhausted. And so, like right now with the events in Shasta and Tuolumne and other places, there are requests for people like me to go to other counties to do work like I do, but just in a different jurisdiction.
So that wasn't an original idea.
No, unfortunately it wasn't. But it is really good. Emergency management really is about those relationships. You don't want to get a phone call from somebody you don't know at 2 o'clock in the morning asking for something. And so the emergency management group in California, we're tight on relationships, and we kind of know a little bit about everybody, people that have kids or do this or do that. So it makes those phone calls in the middle of the night really easy.
Do you have kids?
I do. I have twin boys. They're 6. They just started first grade. So they're pretty awesome little guys.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
When they get to be teenagers, they'll discover how dumb their parent is.
They've already discovered that for sure. Yeah, they are much smarter than me, and there's 2 of them, so it makes things a little challenging.
They gang up on you.
They do.
Now, personal preparedness is another category we want to talk about. Now, this is keeping your home fireproof, maybe? Or
a little bit, yeah. So, as part of that, non-response phase in emergency management, one of the things really is about community education and making sure that people are prepared to deal with whatever happens. A lot of things happen when you're not at home, you're away from your families, you're maybe at work or away, and you need to be prepared to handle whatever that is. So having emergency supplies. When I go out and I do community education events, people say, well, it's really expensive or it's really time consuming to put together an emergency kit. But if you can go to websites like ready.gov and look to kind of see what you should put in an emergency kit, and it really has to be personalized to your family. Each household or family, their composition is different. So what might work for me with my family may not work for you and your family. I've got 2 little kids and 3 dogs and a rabbit and some fish, and that may not work for you or for anyone else. So you really have to take into consideration what your particular needs are when you're putting together that kit. And a lot of things that you need in an emergency kit are things that you already have in your home. And so just putting them in one place that you can grab and take easily whenever the case may be.
So you'd be able to take your supplies and important documents
Yes.
with you if you had to leave suddenly.
Absolutely, yes. The important documents are key, copies of mortgages and insurances and birth certificates and any sort of legal documentation. It sounds silly because, with the internet we can get a lot of that information online, but really it makes it a lot less stressful when you're in that situation if you can prove who you are and the home you owned and the car you owned and who you're married to and who your kids are. You can just do that a lot easier, and there's so many easy ways. You can scan and keep it on your computer. You can put it on a USB drive. You can put it in the cloud, like using Google. So there's so many ways to store those important documents so you have them easily available to you.
Taking your computer might be a little cumbersome, so you can get a thumb drive and stick it in your computer, and then in that thumb could be everything that's in the computer.
Everything, yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Pictures, important pictures. I know that when I was under an advisory evacuation during a fire in a different county, and I had these canvases of my children that I didn't have electronically, so all those went in the trunk. Couldn't scan those, but so keeping those real important things and identifying, if you only have a few minutes to evacuate your home, what do you take? Or if you've got a little bit more lead time, what do you take? And sort of prioritizing those items so that you're thinking about this rather than suddenly trying to figure out what you need to bring with you.
Yeah, that's really so. In trying to make your home more fireproof, I think we want to pay attention to your gutters and make sure that leaves don't get in there.
Absolutely.
And they got these gutter guards that prevent that. And then I don't know if they have any kind of spray that fireproof your roof or not, but it seemed like a metal roof is a good idea if you have a choice.
Metal roof is good, I suppose. It could get a little hot, I guess, but making sure it won't burn. But making sure that you have that defensible space, and making sure that all of the things are cleared out from around your home, and that you've got good clearance. And like you said, clean gutters, and especially out in the rural areas, making sure you've got availability perhaps of water or other resources so that your home is more defendable in an emergency.
Have you heard of anybody putting sprinklers on their roof?
So I'm not a fire expert, and I definitely won't speak for our fire experts in our community, but from what I know, it's probably, I've heard people do it, but it's probably not the best use of water pressure in those events, because it reduces the water pressure at the hydrant. So people do it.
All right. I started to do that, but gave up on it. It got too complicated. Now, another area of discussion is Calaveras Alert.
Calaveras Alert.
It's like Taxpayer Alert.
It is. So Calaveras Alert is our emergency notification system. The community may recall several years ago the county implemented Code Red, and so we've replaced Code Red with Calaveras Alert, and it is a very robust system. But we really need people to register into the system, to go to the website and to register an account. You're able to put in multiple phone numbers, multiple cell phone numbers, multiple email addresses, multiple addresses that you want to be alerted for. When we implemented the system, we were able to acquire like the phone book data, but that doesn't, a lot of people don't have landlines any longer. And so we really want people to register those cell phone numbers, register those email addresses. If you have, 2 residences in this county, or a work address and a home address, or grandma's address, you can get notified for different addresses in the system. And so it's really imperative that we have folks registering so that when we do have an emergency, we can alert citizens of that emergency and what to do.
So they would go to your website?
they can go to the OES website, which is oes.calaveras.gov.us, and they can just click on the notifications button, and they can sign themselves up.
Okay, now that's oes.calaveras.gov.us. Got it right?
Got it right.
Did you write that down? Good. All right, so now you're going to get a whole flock of people.
I hope so. It's really, really, really important. We only use the system when there's an emergency. We've utilized it several times. We've had a few fires in this county this season, and we've used it a few times. And it's just very important that people sign up so that we can let them know that there's something going on that they need to take an action for.
Yeah.
So we really want people to know.
All right, so personal preparedness, which involves being able to be notified
Right.
for danger and taking some steps to become not fireproof but more fire safe.
Right.
And then gathering information about important information to take with you. You have to leave in a hurry.
Right.
Like if you have to leave in 5 minutes, what do you do?
Right.
And then for computer information, which could be a lot of what you want, you can have a thumb drive on your computer. You just take the thumb drive, and then it'll work in another computer just fine.
Right.
And what else? Well, you're not. I guess food would be important, depending on what. If you're fleeing, you might want to have some food to last, depending where you're fleeing to.
Right. And so you bring up a good point in having sort of an emergency plan.
Right.
A lot of people have different circumstances that they need to address. They may have a loved one that's on, some sort of medical equipment or device, or needs special care to be transported out of the home. And so having a plan for, where you might go, what you need to do, if there's extra things you need to bring, having backups of, some of those devices or medications or pairs of glasses or things like that. So having a plan that you share with your family and kind of practice that plan, because things when it's sunny and warm outside are very different than when it's cold in the middle of the night. So making sure you have an emergency plan and have a communication plan, because you may not be with your family when that emergency situation occurs. And so how are you going to get in touch with your family? How are you going to reunify with your family?
Yeah.
And so, the county and our volunteer organizations do a pretty good job of making sure that we're taking care of people by, putting up evacuation centers or shelters or whatever the case may be, but making sure that you have that plan to supplement that is very important.
That's interesting. So that's Calaveras Alert. That's good information. Now there's a number of issues going on, and we have fire, we have tree mortality, and then we have storms. Then we got hazardous trees. How do you handle all that? I mean, I know you probably got 4 or 5 files, I know, but there's probably some way that you coordinate all these things that are going on. At a board of supervisors, every week they redeclare emergencies.
Right.
I guess they need to do that to get compensation.
Right. So we need to keep the disaster declarations open until we've completed all of the work under those declarations. But I am really blessed to have an amazing emergency services coordinator. His name is Jeremy, and he has an extensive recovery background, and so he's also very organized, much more organized than me. So he's really been the one pushing through and making sure that we're organized and things are on track, and things are, if there's things that need to occur, scheduling of resources, he's on top of that.
So how large a staff do you have?
It's me and Jeremy. Okay. So we handle a lot of things between the two of us. We're a pretty good team. So
now, is Jeremy as charming as you are?
He can be as charming as me, yes. We're both charming and delightful. Yes.
Oh, that's so cool. So what's happening with tree mortality?
So with tree mortality, several years ago, the state declared an emergency for tree mortality as a result of the drought. The drought really stressed trees, specific species of trees, and the result of that was that the trees couldn't defend themselves against these bark beetles. Right. So the bark beetles caused the trees to die in huge numbers. And so because of the fire risk and other public safety risks with the dead trees, we have a disaster declaration for that. The program is really there's a lot of agencies out there cutting trees right now, PG&E and Caltrans and the Forest Service and BLM, lots of different agencies cutting trees. Our county tree mortality program is really geared towards clearing those trees that may impact county right-of-ways, like our roadways and things like that. And because a lot of these trees are on private properties, we need to get rights of entry from the property owners. And so our tree mortality project manager is TSS Consultants, and they have been sending out rights of entry forms to property owners in the different areas that are affected by tree mortality. And so if people are watching and they've received a right of entry form, I would really love if they could send that on back so we can get those trees taken care of. It's at no cost to the property owner. The county pays the cost, and then because it's a disaster declaration, we actually get reimbursed from the state for the cost of that.
So the county will cut the tree down. Mm-hmm. Now, will the county remove the tree? So
the county does remove the tree unless the property owner would like to keep the tree for whatever, for firewood or whatever projects. So on the right of entry form, you can designate whether you'd like the county to remove the tree or you'd like us to leave it.
It's there's been some concern about federal policy regarding forests and a proper way to manage it.
Right.
At one time, the forests were pretty well managed by the private sector, who would harvest the trees, and they would when they have even age harvesting, the trees are replanted at the proper scientific distance, where they get the water they need, and they get the sun, and they grow the fastest. Right. But something happens in addition to that. When the trees have the good water supply, they have the sap to prevent the bark beetles. Right. And also, by not overcrowding the forest, the water supply is much better because the trees protect the water supply. And not only that, they want the snow to go to the ground, not be up on the trees. And when the trees are not properly spaced, then the snow the snow gets hung up on the trees because the trees are too close together. And so that means we run out of water earlier, and we don't have as much water to go down to the valley and the ocean. Right. And so by returning to a forest policy that works with the private sector, we not only can have a better economy by having the trees, which is a renewable resource, we have better water supply and less fire danger. Right. And it seemed like such a no-brainer, and it needs to be more of the media besides Taxpayer Alert needs to be talking about this. Right. And someday we've got to return to sanity. Right. So the state has actually changed gears from tree mortality being an emergency to sort of a paradigm shift, I guess you can call it, into forest management and forest health. And so there's a new effort statewide with federal partners and state partners and private agency partners, utilities and such, to really move towards that forest management model again, for a variety of reasons, up to and including the fire danger that exists in the forest. So, Well, one of the efforts to handle the problem is to spend taxpayer money on thinning out the forest. Right. But you don't have to do that if you have a private sector that can sell that wood, and which is a no-brainer. So anyway, we may return to sanity.
Maybe one day.
One
We're
day?
working towards it.
In the meantime, we have to cope with what we have.
Yes.
Now, besides tree mortality, there's and we're talking about the hazards. We talk about the bug trees too, I think, a little bit.
Yep.
And what causes that. And then the other thing of concern is storms.
Right.
And what do we do about storms?
Well, we plan for them. There's a lot of, so as a result of the 2017 winter storms, we had a lot of infrastructure damage here in the county that we're working towards repairing. And so we've had some culvert washouts and some road washouts and some landslide issues. And so we're working towards repairing all of those. Part of it is, that investment in infrastructure and being able to, maintain infrastructure. And this is an issue statewide with aging infrastructure. And so, really it is just about monitoring those upcoming storms, making sure that we're planning ahead for things, making sure that we have the resources we need placed ahead of time. There's a lot of resources available for different reasons and for different activities. And so making sure that we've got all of those lined up in advance so that we can deploy them quickly and address situations quickly when they occur.
Well, that's pretty concise. So now looking ahead, what do you see? Well, you don't have a crystal ball.
I don't. I wish I did. It would make my life so much easier.
Okay. So you're planning for the future. Looking ahead, what do you see coming up in the next year or two or further?
So as far as OES is
Yeah.
concerned, we have a lot of building to do on the program side. There's a lot of plans that need to be written or revised. We have a local hazard mitigation plan that's due every few years, and so that looks at all of our different hazards in the county and sort of what we're going to do to address those. So there's a lot of planning that needs to occur. There's a lot of program development that needs to occur. There's a lot of partners that I don't know in the community yet.
Yeah.
So it would be great to get to know those partners.
You got taxpayers.
I have taxpayers. Those are helpful folks. So there's just a lot of. We really want to get to a space where we have a very prepared and very resilient Calaveras County. Calaveras experienced a lot of devastation with the Butte fire and even with the storms. And, I know this community is very strong and this community is very resilient, but we want to get to a place where we can endure a disaster and then bounce back really quickly from it. So that's really what we're working towards.
Well, if we do that, we're going to give you a medal.
I know. I have to work myself out of a job is really what I need to do. That's like my goal in life, is to work myself out of a job.
Well, Michelle, we're so delighted to have you. This has been a very interesting program, and we hope you wrote down that website so you can be informed and be prepared. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you for being here.